Good morning and welcome to the return of News Center Maine's Political Brew. Now, as you may know, we put these weekly segments on hold a couple of months ago following the sudden death of our longtime friend and Democratic analyst, former Speaker of the House, John Richardson. But with the campaigns now at the Labor Day milestone, we are back and we're bringing more voices to the discussion. Over the next 3 weeks, you'll see all of our new combinations. We begin this week with the charter member of the Political Brew team, Republican former State Senator Phil Harriman. And joining us today and every few weeks is longtime progressive Democratic activist Betsy Sweet, most recently seen in the news as a candidate for U.S. Senate and previously governor of Maine. So it is our pleasure to welcome her to our Sunday morning political discussions. Betsy, Phil, great to see you.
Good to see you back.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Let's start with the CD-2 race. Jared Golden has been on the air for several weeks. Dale Crafts is just beginning. A very positive tone from each so far. Is that likely to change? Are we going to see the PACs jump in to what is seen as a vulnerable seat, Phil?
I do think the PACs, the political action committees on both sides, will jump into this race. Maine 2nd Congressional District media market is a relatively inexpensive market to buy messages. This seat is a path forward for the Republicans to try to regain the majority. They will do whatever they can to win that race. And in the meantime, part of your question, I do believe that the candidates can stay on the high road, the positive road, and the political action committees can draw the distinctions.
Betsy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think people I've talked to are thrilled that they've stayed on the high road so far. You know, they're sick of this negative advertising and all the other races. And so for them to actually put forward what they want, I think people are looking excited about that. And I hope they'll stay there. And I think Phil's right. The PACs will jump in and try and do some more of that negative stuff. But I think they'll stay. I hope they'll stay positive.
Now, the first debate in the U.S. Senate race is happening this coming Friday, September 11th, here on News Center Maine, in conjunction with the Portland Press-Herald and the Bangor Daily News. Betsy, what do you hope to hear from the candidates this week?
I really hope to hear what they're for. You know, I think that we have got to get away from saying why the other person is not good and really say these are the policies that I stand for. And one of the other things, and I've always thought this, Pat, and you get a lot of kudos for this, is I think the questioning needs to be about their values and how they make decisions. Because, you know, like when we were running for governor, no one knew there was going to be a pandemic. No one asked us about the pandemic. The issues will change. But if we say, what are you most proud of? When you don't know something, where do you get your information? When did you take a stand against something that people told you to, do something differently? Those are the kinds of value and character things that I think people want to find out.
Phil, what would you like to hear on Friday?
Well, in addition to what Betsy said, and I think that's a refreshing approach to this campaign, which has just been nasty, mean, demeaning. It's like getting ahead by pulling the other person down. I think Maine citizens want to know why Susan Collins, you should stay in this seat that you've held for 6 elections, and Sarah, what makes you the one that should replace Susan, because you're going to start your U.S. Senate service at the bottom of the seniority rung, and how will Maine be better represented with your inability to be in a position that Susan Collins is going to be, which is a very seasoned, influential senator if she's reelected.
We've been hearing a lot of attacks on the candidates, Collins versus Gideon. Now we're hearing some attacks on their respective husbands and their family businesses. Phil, do you think this is an effective political tactic here?
I don't think it's a long-term strategy. The Collins commercial that points out that Gideon's husbands accessed that program that Gideon criticized, I think that's okay, but I would leave it there and move on. But it looks as though now they're going to play political ping pong with each other's spouses and businesses, and I don't think Maine citizens have an appetite for that.
What do you think, Betsy? Do Maine voters really care about this?
No, and I think they're sick of it. And I think, it's not actually ping pong, it's darts, and they're really trying to get at each other. And I think, I think that, the policy issues are fine. But again, I think the only thing that's interesting there is about character. And so let's ask them about that for themselves. And I don't think, women being judged by their husbands is something we gave up. We should give up. And that doesn't belong anywhere in politics.
This week, the Governor Mills gave her department heads more time to submit budget plans for next year with the hope that the feds will provide more money to prevent major reductions. I'm sure there are a lot of people holding their breath in state capitals and still no action from the U.S. Senate. What do you make of it?
It's appalling to me that they have turned this in the middle of this crisis, this pandemic, when people's lives are on the line, based on what the state can do for them, to have this be in political football. This act, this HEROES Act that's already passed by the House, is sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk with no action, and they go on vacation. Now, there are people with rents due, mortgages due, with people who are trying to get health care for their loved ones, figuring out their jobs, unemployment, and so the Senate takes off. I think that is a dereliction of their duties.
Phil, the legislature has not been able to figure out a way to come back either.
Well, that's true. And on one side of it, the U.S. government, which doesn't have to balance its book, which is why we're hemorrhaging debt and deficits, they've already gone trillions of dollars in debt just to help the private sector with unemployment benefits and payroll protection, et cetera. And now the state government does have to balance its book. Our Constitution says you have to balance the books. And I have called on Governor Mills going back as far as May to say, bring the legislature in, begin the cost reductions. Don't wait for the federal government to borrow more money that we, the people, have to repay, and send it to the states so that they don't have to make difficult decisions. We have to make tough decisions, and they need to be done now.
Yeah,
she's clearly hoping for more time.
Yeah, and the Republicans won't go back in. We've tried that. And so it is a problem. And I think that, I don't think any state is going to get out of this without federal help. We haven't seen this kind of economic crisis since the Great Depression. So we're all in this together, and everybody has to play their part. And I think that the Senate has abdicated, the U.S. Senate has abdicated their role, and there's no time for that.
Shifting gears now, Pastor Todd Bell of the Calvary Baptist Church in Sanford, which is linked to the major COVID outbreak in the Katahdin region, has told his followers to put their faith in God, not government. And reports indicate he's taken a very lax attitude toward protective measures mandated by the state. COVID cases at that church are now in the double digits. Phil, should the Mills administration be sending some message here? Should they be getting tough?
Well, I think the Mills administration for the entire state has been tough and established guidelines for us to follow. I don't think that she needs to take more executive action on a particular entity or individual. But I do think this is a reminder for everyone tuning into the Political Brew this morning that these measures matter. Washing your hands and staying distance and wearing a mask, those things matter, and this is proof of it.
But do we need some sort of enforcement, Betsy?
Well, I think one of the things we need is a really stronger recognition that wearing a mask and doing these protective measures that Phil talked about are to protect other people.
Right.
We have to get out of this individual, it's all about me. Well, it's in a public health crisis. It's not all about you. You wearing a mask is making sure that you're not giving it to somebody else who's going home and has got a sick child or a sick parent at home or someone who's, more vulnerable. So I think we have to not just do something, some actionable thing, but to really remind people that we are in this together and we have to get back to caring about one another, not just ourselves.
Turning to the race for the White House, President Trump is now running on a law and order theme, trying to blame Democrats for violence in the streets. Do you think he'd be better off focusing more on an economic recovery? We've seen some good job numbers this past week, and polls indicate people are somewhat inclined to be sympathetic to President Trump on the economy, Betsy.
Yeah, it's hard for him to say we need law and order. We're going to fix, he just said it in the Kenosha. He said, we would have not violence in the street, in my administration, and we'll take care of this and this and this. It is your administration. We are in your administration. So I think that it doesn't hold water. And I think we have to make sure that COVID is number one. We have to keep people alive and safe. Then we have to have economic boom has to come back. And, the economic numbers do not reflect the people that I'm talking to in Maine who either don't have a job or having to work 3 jobs, people who don't feel safe going back, and I think we also are in the midst of people trying to figure out how to go back to school with no national leadership. And that's where his focus should be.
And Phil, is law and order a winning theme for the president?
Yeah, I actually think it is. And the distinction is that the president has built a pretty clear record on how he feels about the economy and what he's done to bring jobs back to Maine and around the country. I think he already owns that space what he's now saying is, look, if you live in one of these cities run by Democrats who are allowing the anarchists to take your freedoms away and make you feel unsafe taking a walk, or your kids being about in the playgrounds, I think that is connecting with people. And the reason the president can't go in there and do something about it is because he has to be invited in, because these are states' rights.
All right, let's wrap up today with our political winners and losers of the week. And Betsy, the honor is yours.
All right, so my winner is Senator Ed Markey in Massachusetts, who just won his primary running on Bold Solutions. He's the co-author of the Green New Deal, and he ran against a Kennedy, first time to beat a Kennedy, anyone in Massachusetts. And I think the establishment came in on Kennedy's side, so I think that was a good win for the people. And I think the loser this week to me is Attorney General Bill Barr, who said he had to go check and see whether it was actually illegal to vote twice, as Donald Trump was telling people to do. So that's the loser.
All right, and Phil?
Pat, my loser this week is the mayors of these Democrat cities around the country that are allowing people to run looting and creating mayhem in their cities. The winner this week for me is all of the Maine family businesses that are managing to be resilient and persistent in getting through this crisis. They're doing a job that only a private family business could do to keep their economy and their employees employed.
All right, Phil Harriman, Betsy Sweet, thank you so much for taking part today. Thank you for joining us. News Center Maine is back after this.